ballot dump. That's not evidence of fraud. It's literally votes being counted. All votes are counted in batches. They're never counted one by one. And when those votes come in from excuse me.
What's going on, you guys? Today we have Brian Tyler Cohen debating Tomi Lahren. They're going back and forth, and Brian Tyler Cohen calls Tomi Lahren and her Republican Army delusional. They're talking about voter fraud.
Had just made it abundantly clear. By the way, I think we're showing photos of your illustrious governor there breaking his own mandates and edicts because he and his Aunt Nancy don't think that they need to follow their own rules. So again, when you're a hypocrite like that, when you go to the French Laundry and you spend thousands and thousands of dollars while your state is suffering and your constituents are suffering, you're going to get recalled. And I believe it's going to happen.
Brian?
Yeah, first off, Tomi has about as much say in recalling the California governor as I do in recalling the Queen of England. But here's the thing. Emergency powers were given to the governor for an emergency situation. And if the fourth largest mass casualty event in U.S. history isn't an emergency, I don't know what is. And look, yeah, life is hard right now. Things are bad throughout the entire country. But the reason they're bad is because instead of taking this virus seriously in the beginning, all we got was denialism from the GOP. When that party, the party in charge, should have been working to contain it, they followed Trump's lead and downplayed it and pretended it wasn't real. They allowed it to explode throughout this country. So instead of focusing your energy on a doomed recall effort that you and I and Alex and everyone watching knows is going absolutely nowhere, maybe focus your energy on taking these simple steps that could actually help contain this virus instead of complaining that your freedoms are being trampled by the people whose only goal is to actually help people survive. The longer that we protest, thanks to people like Tomi, the longer this is going to remain a hardship for people.
Well, I mean, look, I think the recall is unlikely, but I don't know necessarily that it's going nowhere. I mean, we did have a recall in 2003 of a Democratic governor of California, and stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I mean, stranger things have happened, but it's a different world between 2003 and 2020.
It is a different world, and there's more Democratic voters now.
But and ballot harvesting, right, Brian? Got to make sure that those elections stay the way you want them to, with your ballot harvesting and no signature verification.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sure we're going to talk about it. Don't you worry,
well, let's bring up that issue, which is the issue of voter fraud, because the last time that we were together was right before the election. The big debate at that time was Trump versus Biden. At this point, we now have had the Electoral College has spoken for Joe Biden. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has acknowledged that Joe Biden is the president-elect. Tomi, is it time for President Trump to concede?
And here we have Tomi Lahren, spitting it's the regular Republican rhetoric of, oh, someone's going to be out to get you. They're going to, is voter fraud. It's just always corrupt. The system is going to try to tear you down by any means necessary. Let's keep on going.
I don't think it's time for President Trump to concede until we get an actual investigation into election integrity and voter fraud. And it's funny because the Democrats, I seem to remember 4 years ago, spent 4 years investigating this president fruitlessly and wasting our taxpayer dollars on their investigation. But now all of a sudden they don't believe in investigating. They want to turn the other cheek, pretend that it didn't happen, and they scoff at bringing up election integrity or maintaining the integrity of our elections, which is incredibly rich given they spent 4 years doing that very thing.
Brian?
Yeah, okay, a few points I want to cover here. The first is that, look, I get that Trump wants to continue crying fraud so that he can keep grifting his supporters into donating and paying down his campaign debt. It's because he also wants to, because he's groomed his supporters into believing that there's nothing worse than a loser, and that's exactly what he's become. Beyond that, this is what Trump does. He cried fraud during the Iowa caucus. He cried fraud during the 2016 general before he won. The 2016 general after he won. He cried fraud about the Emmys. The guy literally broadcast that he would say the election was rigged if he lost, and that's exactly what he's doing. This is what Trump does. Beyond that, if there's any legitimate evidence of fraud, they'd have presented it in court. That is quite literally where the fraud issues are adjudicated. And yet not in any of the 59 cases that Trump and his allies have brought forward has a single evidence of fraud been proven. This whole last month has been a legal shellacking for the Trump team. The only reason that Republicans and Tomi like to make these claims is that it was never about winning in a court of law. It was about winning in the court of public opinion.
But
it's
Tomi,
about manipulating people into believing a disinformation campaign.
Tomi, to Brian's point, why is there only fraud in the states that Trump lost?
Well, when you look at swing states, I think it's very important to understand that we have legitimate questions that need to be answered. How does their mail-in ballot drops in the middle of the night after voting was, which they tell us that they stopped counting, and then the middle of the night they have thousands and thousands of ballots that come in that are exclusively for Joe Biden, and then you have the Dominion voting.
And here we have Brian Tyler Cohen making a great point that, Trump does not want to respect the fact of losing, that he does not want to even acknowledge that that's a possibility, which is very dangerous for the American culture to adapt that there's no such thing as losing. That's how we become, the most hated in the world already. We're already hated, and now we're becoming even more hated by, the countries around us, by China, by by everyone in the world, possibly. So there's sort of it's two different perspectives really coming at a clash. We have Tomi Lahren and Brian Tyler Cohen, who he specifically wants to acknowledge the fact that it's okay to lose. It is okay. That's a very natural thing.
I'd love to answer that.
Why does he interrupt me every time I'm speaking?
Yeah, okay.
Again, if I were a liberal, I'd call you a sexist, but I'm not. Thank goodness.
Go ahead, Tomi.
But again, they did a forensic imaging of the Dominion voting machines in Antrim County, and they did find through that investigation that there were major problems with those voting machines, and those were used in 24 different states. So yes, we need an audit of the vote. We need to make sure that we have signature verification. You can't just send in ballots with signatures that you're not going to verify that all say Joe Biden on it and call it a day. No, we have legitimate reason to question with the mass mail-in voting that was brought on by the Democrats under the guise of coronavirus. We have legitimate reason to question it. And being in the state of California, that not only do you have mail-in voting that you had for a long time, you have ballot harvesting with no signature verification. And you want to tell me that that's safe and secure? Then you take that California model and you spread it all around the country, and you expect people like me to sit down and shut up and not talk about voter fraud? No, I'm very well aware of what goes on in California and how the Democratic Party was able to spread that around the nation.
Quickly, Tomi, as a follow-up to that, why, if that's such a Democratic advantage, did Republicans do so well when it comes to congressional seats in California? Donald Trump obviously lost here big, but Republicans won big on those very same ballots.
Well, California is an issue and an aside from that. We're talking about the swing states. Trump was never going to win California. I think we're all aware of that. But we're talking about these swing states that had voting stop in the middle of the night, ballot drops, mail-in ballot drops, and with no signature verification. If you're not going to verify the signatures and you want to have mass mail-in voting with no signature verification, how is that unreasonable for people like me and for other Trump supporters to question that? How is that unreasonable?
Brian, quickly to you.
Yeah, I would love to answer this. Okay, so first of all, when you describe a ballot dump, that's not evidence of fraud. It's literally votes being counted. All votes are counted in batches. They're never counted one by one. And when those votes come in from excuse me.
And this is ironic given that, and I think they even mentioned it in this clip, that you do require a signature. Signatures are very much required by, the voting polls, the polling stations. This is all just lies spewed by the right to cause disruption, cause another coup, cause problems to begin with.
Tomi, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but I'm actually speaking right now. So when those votes come in from Democratic population centers like cities, Democrats' numbers go up. That's not fraud just because those votes are for Democrats. Second of all, the issue of no signature verification, that's completely false. In Georgia, the signatures not only verified the first time when the absentee ballot request comes in against the voter registration file, it's then verified again when the actual ballot is returned. So when you say that there's no signature verification, you are lying. The courts have said there's no fraud. Donald Trump's own appointed judges have said there's no fraud, including his appointed judges in Georgia, Wisconsin, the Third Circuit, the 11th Circuit, and the Supreme Court. Bill Barr's DOJ has said there's no fraud. Chris Krebs and the DHS's cybersecurity unit have said there's no fraud. Republican governors and Republican secretaries of state have said there's no fraud. And even Rudy Giuliani himself admitted in court that there was no claims to fraud. So I don't know what you're talking about when you say fraud other than this Republican fever dream that you're dealing with right now.
Last word, Tom.
So there we have it, you guys. We have Brian Tyler Cohen going at it with Tomi Lahren. Both of them are, they're both going at each other's necks, it seems like, and it's Tomi Lahren really getting fact-checked by Brian Tyler Cohen, and there's nothing really more to say. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. It's another day in the progressive way.